Hello everyone, I hope you're fine. Again, I've come up with another lecture called on economics, and we're going to discuss certain topics that's very prevalent when it comes to UPSC mains examination out there. Very prevalent when it comes to UPSC mains examination. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to juxtapose. What we're going to do is we're going to juxtapose we're going to juxtapose we're going to juxtapose what we called as society and economy, because the question that's been asked on regular basis is not only related to the core concepts of economy, it's been interlinked with the other disciplines as well. And the most important combination that formed in a question, especially when it comes to mains examination of UPSC, is juxtaposition of nothing but a society and economy. Society and economy out there. This is how we called that. Okay. Society and economy. So we need to juxtapose all of the concepts of the both discipline out there in order to answer that comprehensively. And when it comes to GS1 and GS3, these two themes are very important. You need to understand what's been going on with these two themes out there. Okay, you need to understand that. Okay. So what we're going to do is to create a Venn diagram out there. This is nothing but what we call as society and economy, and we need to hit this part. As soon as possible. Okay, this is the intersection point. This is considered to be an intersection point of society and economy. Let's move on to the theme. Again, the theme is, sir, uneven economic growth, impact on social cohesion and policy solutions. Of course, there has been an uneven economic growth. There has been a lot of inequality out there. That has its negative repercussions on what we called as a social cohesion and policy solutions. When I talk about the social cohesion, we are talking about what we call as the social capital out there. Social capital in simpler terms is nothing but a fraternity out there. Fraternity, that's even mentioned in your preamble as well. Social capital is nothing but a fraternity. Brotherhood out there. Brotherhood, feeling of brotherhood out there. Feeling of brotherhood out there. So again, what's the theme for this? The theme is uneven economic growth in India, impact on social cohesion and policy solutions. What's the impact of uneven growth that's been taking place in India on social cohesion, what we called as a social capital out there? Feeling of brotherhood. Social capital is nothing but a feeling of brotherhood. Let's discuss this because it's a very interesting theme out there, and the questions has been repeatedly asked in UPSC mains examination. As you know, that UPSC mains examination is all about critical analysis. You need certain points, you need perspective out there in order to score better marks as compared to your competitor out there. So again, sir, India's growth, it's a top notch out there. It's a top notch. It's the fourth largest economy when it comes to a nominal GDP out there. It's the fourth largest economy. Fourth largest economy in terms of nominal GDP. Right behind US, China and Germany. Right behind US, China and Germany. It's the fourth largest. But the growth has been marked as what we called as a jobless growth. Has been marked as what we called as a jobless growth. What we called as a jobless growth out there. Okay. It's marked as what we call as a jobless growth. Now, consider this example. If there has been too much of growth, okay, we are heading towards what we called as a growth. We are heading towards what we called as a growth. We are heading towards what we called as a growth. But it is marked by what we called as jobless growth. It's been marked by what we called as a jobless growth out there. Okay. It's been marked by jobless growth. There has been a growth. The GDP has been rising there. There is no doubt about that. Nominal GDP, we are getting there. But again, it's a jobless growth. There are no jobs in the economy at this moment. No jobs. No jobs. Look at the condition. Look at the condition of a market out there. Are you getting any sort of job? No, there is no jobs out there. Look at the government sector employment. Are there any sort of increase in vacancies out there? No, there are limited numbers of jobs out there. 10 lakh people apply for civil services examination. Trust me, 10 lakh. And what's the selection ratio? It's 1,000 out there. 1,000 ultimately will be selected out of that 10 lakh in UPSC civil service examination. That's the skewed ratio out there. Skewed ratio. That's a skewed ratio out there. That means the number of applicants are more, but the jobs availability is extremely less. It's a skewed ratio. Applicants are way too much. It's a very natural, as applicants will be more than a job out there, but it's way too much out there. Applicants way too more as compared to the job availability out there. As compared to the job availability out there. Job availability out there. That's called a jobless growth. That's called a jobless growth out there. Okay. That's called a jobless growth out there. Again, if you look at the private sector even, it's a private, if you look at the private sector, if you look at the private sector, trust me, private sector, there has been a disruption in the market due to advent of AI. There has been a disruption in the market. There has been a disruption. There has been a disruption in the market caused by the advent of AI. Caused by the advent of AI. Caused by the advent of AI out there. Again, what we call this as a nothing but structural unemployment. Structural unemployment. What's structural unemployment? Unemployment, nothing. It's unemployment that's been caused by the advent of a new technology out there, and people do not know how to use that. What we say in economy is there is a skill deficit out there. Skill deficit out there. See, in this present scenario, either people are not required to perform any sort of job because AI can perform that at a much better productivity as compared to the human being out there, or people don't know how to manage AI system out there. They don't have that technical basis how to handle artificial intelligence in the present era out there. That's the problem. Either there is a skill deficit, or either companies don't require any particular person out there to perform a certain task because AI can perform that at a much higher pace, at a much higher productivity as compared to any other person that's been available in the market. I hope you got this point out there. Why we are saying that, okay, India is the fourth largest economy in terms of nominal GDP, but hey, look, there has been a jobless growth. The growth is there, but the jobs are not there. that's gonna suffocate what we call as a lower middle class and the working class out there. That's gonna suffocate them. That's gonna suffocate them. Because again, if you look at the per capita income, it's not that good as compared to the advanced economies. Okay, population is one of the criteria out there that we don't have a good per capita income. But again, it's way too less. How will you ensure a standard of living? How will you ensure a good standard of living for a person? It is even, the dignity has been even mentioned in Article 21 of the Constitution. Okay, you have to provide a dignified life to certain people out there so they can live out there. What we call as a roti, kapda and makan. You need to provide that. You need to provide that to persons. How will they survive in this world otherwise? There is no point. We need growth. We need growth. But along with growth, what we need is we call as development. We call it development. And development includes human development as well. Development includes human development as well. So what we say is that, okay, look, we are the fourth largest economy, but there has been jobless growth out there. The jobs has not been there, either because of the structural unemployment that's been there, or either people don't have those skills that is required at this current era. The point is, we don't look only about growth or a GDP out there. We also consider what's called a development. So if you need to know what's the relation between a growth and a development, so growth is nothing but it's a subset of development. So if this is a development out there, this will be a growth. Growth is just one aspect of development out there. It's just one aspect of development out there. I hope that's completely fine with you. I hope the debate is clear. Between the growth and the development out there, and you can vouch for it. Come to this. Stark economic disparities. As we have discussed that there has been a stark economic disparities out there. Stark economic disparities that lead to that impact negatively to what we call as a social cohesion. That impacts social cohesion, or what we call as a social capital. Social capital out there. Okay. The first is the wealth concentration, the top 1%. If you look at the pyramid, this is called a pyramid out there. The top 1% hold the maximum wealth, holds max wealth out there, hold max wealth. And the bottom percentage, which is majority in nature, hold minute amount of resources or assets. Minute amount of assets out there. I hope that's completely fine with you. Another is a GDP growth versus inequality. Despite a projected GDP growth of 7.3% in 2024, India's inequality levels remain among the highest globally, as highlighted by the World Inequality Report. Again, there has been a regional gaps. State like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu exhibit significantly higher development compared to Bihar and Odisha. Human development has been different, as interstate disparities are also there. Interstate disparities are also there. Interstate disparities has been there, because when you look at the states like Tamil Nadu, or Kerala, there has been a high literacy rate. When you look at the states like Tamil Nadu or Kerala, there has been what we call as a high human development. They focus on human development too often. They focus on human development. There has been a high focus on human development out there. High focus on human development. You can even vouch for it, because look at the literacy rate out there. You can even vouch for it. There has been an interstate disparities that's been there, but certain state like Tamil Nadu or Kerala or down south, there has been a high focus on human development out there. High focus on human development, because even you can vouch that for, look at the literacy rate out there. Almost 100% is there in Kerala. But when you look at the literacy rate, on an average for India, the literacy rate stands at 80%. But when you look at what we call as a Bimaru states out there, or Bihar, UP, the literacy rate is much less than the average out there. So average Indian literacy rate stands approx 80%. But if you look at the Bihar and UP and all these Bimaru states out there, it's even way less than 80% out there. Now, how do you, that's interstate disparities. But inter-country disparities are also there. Inter-country disparities are also there. Inter-country disparities. How are you going to calculate the inequality vis-a-vis the other countries that's been there in the advanced economies? So there is a curve called Lorentz curve out there. Again, it's an important concept. Question can be asked in pre regarding Lorentz curve. Otherwise, you can mention this point in one of the points in the main examination out there. I'm going to draw this. I'm going to explain you this how Lorentz curve works. Again, this is nothing but what we call as Lorentz curve. So what we call as a Lorentz curve. This is your x-axis, this is your y-axis. Here we will write what we called as percentage of population. What we called as percentage of population. On y-axis, we're going to write percentage of income, or income directly. Let's take as income. Take as income. Income percentage. Now I'm going to say that this is literally called an equality line. This is called equality line. This is called equality line. This is called equality line. I've just closed this square out there. This is called This is called equality line out there. Okay. Now consider this. I'm going to draw Lorentz curve. I'm going to draw Lorentz curve. This is called Lorentz curve. This is called a Lorentz curve. Now you can see that's an equality line. And trust me, no nation has achieved the perfect equality. There are certain nations like Scandinavian nations that's been close to an equality line out there, but no country runs on a perfect equality line. No country does that. No one can actually. No one can. If you're capitalist economy, it's run by the free markets. It's run by the simple principle of demand and supply. No economy can achieve what we called as a perfect equality out there. No economy can achieve that a perfect equality out there. I hope that's clear with you. I hope that's clear with you. Okay. So let me explain you. Now, as you can see, there has how you will understand this. How you will understand this. Take it. Let me mark this. This is 20%. This is 40%. This is 60%. This is 80%. And this is 100%. Again, take the markings and cut copy paste on y-axis. 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, and of course 100%. And of course 100% out there. Okay. So see, just representation. Just look at the numbers out there. Just look at the numbers. 60% of population, approx 60% of population have only 20% of income. 60% of population have only 20% of income. That represents complete inequality. That means the rest 40% have what we call as 80% of income. The rest 40% have 80% of income. Again, analyze this. 60% of population only have 20% of income, of nation's income out there. Rest 40% have 80% of national income. That means there has been a huge inequality that's been there. Another, there's a term called Gini coefficient. There is a term called Gini coefficient. Called Gini coefficient. Now, Gini coefficient is calculated based on certain things. It can be either 0 on extremes. It can be either 0 or 1. 0, what it represents? It represents complete equality, which is almost next to impossible to achieve. Next to impossible. No country can do that. There are certain countries who follow this principle, who are closer to being equal out there. That's called a Scandinavian nations like Denmark, Norway, Sweden out there. So Gini coefficient is 0 or 1. This is nothing but complete equality. And this is called complete inequality. Complete inequality. Okay, this is called complete inequality. Complete equality, complete inequality. Now this is complete equality. How it's calculated, how Gini coefficient is calculated, it's nothing but area between the perfect line. This is called a perfect line in Lorentz curve. Equality line is nothing but a perfect line. Area between perfect line and Lorentz curve, LC, and area under under perfect line. Area under perfect line. Okay. Now take an example. Take an example. If by chance I draw this Lorentz curve right above this equality line or a perfect line out there, or there has been an overlapping of this what we call as a Lorentz curve and equality line. So take an example. If there has been what we call as overlapping of this Lorentz curve that I'm drawing with white color, overlapping of this white color over this perfect line. Now what you can do is that if you calculate this Gini coefficient, that's the area between a perfect line and a Lorentz curve out here, it will come out to be a 0 because there has been an overlapping. Anything 0, if a numerator is 0, it will turn out to be a 0. It will turn out to be a 0 out there. That means there has been a complete equality. There has been a complete equality, which is a hoax. No country can achieve that. Which is a hoax. No country can achieve that during its lifetime. That's next to impossible, because if you're running your economy right at the principles, or you're applying the principles of demand and supply, and you're applying the principles of market out there, no country can achieve what is called a complete equality out there. That's a complete hoax statement. That's a complete. There are certain countries that are closer to this, that is called as Scandinavian nations like Denmark or Norway or Sweden out there. But again, perfect equality is next to impossible. Perfect equality is next to impossible. Next to impossible. Okay. Now again, if there has been a complete inequality, assume that this Lorentz curve is this. Drawing with orange out there, complete overlap over the x-axis out there, complete overlap. Now the area between PL and LC is something called x, and area under PL is also called as x, which will turn out to be a 1, out there. That represents a complete inequality, and again we are closer to this as compared to the perfect equality. We are closer to this. India as a nation is unequal, obviously it's unequal out there. It's complete inequality. There has been inequality. Top 1% hold the maximum resources out there as compared to the bottom 99% out there. So India is closer to this. So India is closer to this. I hope that's completely fine with you. I hope you're clear with this concept. That represents the interstate, represents the inter-country disparities out there. Okay. Now there has been some regional disparities, a tale of two India. There has been some regional disparities out there. The economic divide in India is profoundly shaped by regional disparities. There has been regional disparities. There are some states where the state GDP is higher as compared to the other states. That's been the education system out there. Essential resources like infrastructure, quality education, employment avenues are unevenly distributed and perpetuating the gap. So, in Bihar, there is no manufacturing. There are no industries. As a result, there has been a higher unemployment rate as compared to when you talk about the Karnataka, because there is a Bangalore. The capital city is Bangalore, and it is known as a IT hub of India. IT hub. There is certainly called a IT hub in India. Bangalore is considered for that. Okay. So another stark urban-rural divide further intensifies economic inequality within regions with urban centers often thriving at the expense of rural. And there has been inequalities in the urban and the rural centers as well. So we have discussed in our earlier classes, as there has been more opportunities in urban as compared to the rural segment out there. Why there has been? Because of course the industries has been there. Rural sector is known for what we call as agriculture. Is known for agriculture, and agriculture is stiffly bounded by what we called as agriculture. Agriculture is stiffly bounded by agriculture is stiffly bounded by what we called as disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment. What is disguised unemployment? And unemployment that's been marked by marginal productivity zero. That's been marked by marginal productivity zero. Marginal productivity zero. That means by employing additional member out there, you're not increasing any sort of output. By even employing an additional member out there, you're not increasing any sort of output over there. That's called marginal productivity zero. So for example, if 4 members are there in a land, and producing 10 kg output out there, if you're gonna employ even one more member, the output remains the constant. Output will remain the constant out there. Output will remain constant out there. Okay, output will remain constant out there. Output will remain constant out there. I hope that's completely fine with you. Okay, it's completely fine with you. So it is marked by agriculture. That's why there has been a rural-urban divide. That's why there has been what we call as a rural-urban divide out there. So there has been regional disparities because of economics out there. There are certain nations, there are certain states out there, like these states. These are states where human development is higher. These states, urban centers like Delhi, Bangalore, or what we call as Kolkata. So there has been urban, rural, all sort of things. There has been a disparities. Now there has been disparities. There has been a lower productivity over there because no manufacturing segment is there. It is even also considered as an area that's been affected by Naxalism. That's called a red corridor area. So there are no manufacturing or industrialization. Zero industrialization over there. No industrialization. No industrialization is there. No industrialization is there. I hope that's completely fine with you. I hope that's fine with you. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Social fragmentation, the human cost of economic divide. How economic divide leads to what we call as social fragmentation. How economic divide leads to what we call as social fragmentation. Work social cohesion. India ranks amongst Asia's weakest nation in terms of social cohesion. There has been no social cohesion. Hindu-Muslim conflict is on rise. There has been what we call as Hindu-Muslim conflict. Hindu-Muslim conflict. There has been a conflict between a general category and scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. General category, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. There has been conflict of man and woman, feminist and those who are propagating what we call as a men's right out there. There has been conflict between homosexuals and heterosexuals. Let me write it down in a new. There has been conflict between what we called as homosexuals and heterosexuals. There has been conflict between man and a woman. There has been a conflict between what we called as class conflict, rich and poor, class conflict. Haves and have not. There has been a conflict between general category and scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. There has been a recent uprise of what we called as a Hindu-Muslim conflict. Hindu-Muslim called as a Hindu-Muslim conflict out there. So all these leads to what we called as, all these will lead to weaken our social fabric or social cohesion. Weaken our social fabric or social cohesion out there. Okay, or social cohesion out there. That's how it's going to weaken things. Out there. Heightened tension has been there. Recent introduced such as Hindu-Muslim rights, that's been there in the Delhi, and there has been numerous cases that's involved in all over India. There has been too much of tensions that's been going between the communities. That's the impact. You will say, sir, how it's been increasing? Because there is no unemployment. There has been a lot of unemployment has been there. There is no proper identity over there. See, if you introduce someone, you say, oh, I do this job, I do that job. But if someone is unemployed, he doesn't have any sort of identity out there. In order to find that fake identity, he consider or associate himself with too much of what we call as a Hindu or a Muslim, because there has been what we call as unemployment. Negative impact of unemployment leads to identity crisis. Leads to what we call as identity crisis, and when there is an identity crisis, it will automatically attach yourself with certain identities, and that will lead to conflict, and that will eventually lead to conflict. Compounding factor, enduring caste system. Okay, India's rich ethnic diversity, caste system, it's an old age practice out there in India, and there has been always conflict between general category and those who are reserved categories out there, because of reservation and all these stuffs out there. So inequalities impact on social participation. Economic inequality significantly erodes social participation. Declining labor force participation, especially among women, labor force participation dropped from 46 to 47% within 2017 to 22 due to limited. The point is, because there has been inequality, there has been unemployment out there, the participation has been less. Women remains within the perimeter or within the area of these four walls out there. How will they come out? Because they don't have jobs. How will they come out? Erosion of trust. Low level of trust and weakened social networks hinder collective action and civic engagement. Simple. Social instability. Economic and social exclusion leads to feeling of isolation, rejection, and ultimately social instability. There has not been so much of participation because of economic inequality. Again, the gender issues has been there. There are a lot of issues where we not call India as inclusive society. Okay, inclusive society. So I hope that's clear with you. Policy challenges, we need good policies out there, inclusive growth initiatives, as we have discussed in our previous lecture, in length and breadth out there, we need that. Neoliberal policies, widened opportunity gaps leading to increased concentration of power. We need equality. We need equality out there. Okay, we need equality out there. At last, there has been a perpetuated equality. There has been a perpetuated inequality out there. Inequality of opportunity continues. Inequality of opportunities continues to reinforce wealth concentration and social exclusion, creating a vicious cycle. Vicious cycle out there. Okay. So this is the stuff that you need to understand. how we are so behind when it comes to equality, how we are so behind when it comes to social capital out there, how we are so behind when it comes to forging a trust between a community. It's been absent. It's been absent for a very long period of time. We need renewal. We need renewal out there. We need that sort of policy that can bring people together, that can develop a feeling of fraternity out there with the people out there, along different religion, along different caste lines. All these stuff we need to eradicate, and you can only do that when there has been a good economy. Because if you're going to offer certain things or a good job out there, people going to find their identity. They're not going to associate themselves, oh, I'm Brahmin, oh, look, I'm Hindu out there, I'm a Muslim out there. They're going to associate themselves with their profession out there. And as long as people associate themselves with a particular profession, it's going to lead to what we call as increase in human productivity, increase in growth, and eventually lead to increase in the development of a nation out there. So I hope that's completely fine with you. That's it from my side in this lecture. Thanks for coming. Thank you.